From Chicago, it's the Live from the Heartland show. I'm Michael James. I'm here with my cohort, Katy Hogan, and we're bringing you live from the Heartland, or Heartland at Home as it's known during the time of the pandemic, number 89. It's for the week of February 19th in the year 2022. We're going to talk music, probably we're going to talk sports. We are going to talk a lot of sports, and who knows what else we're going to fill you in on. How are you doing, Katy? You're looking good.
Oh, good. Great. Yeah, nice snowstorm yesterday. I really liked the feel of being cozied up on a winter's night with snow flying outside one's window. There's something cool about that. Attended my second funeral in a week, and I guess we'll talk about our friend Al Greiman, who passed this week at age 90. A very full life, a giant of a guy in all ways, not unlike Mimi Harris the week before, a giant of a gal. So I hope they're
Well, there were
confabing.
others too. We may as well mention Todd Gitlin passed. He was a very strong intellectual in New York. He was from the early SDS days, that's Students for Democratic Society. He was one of the early presidents. I had the honor of working with Todd Gitlin in Uptown. He and his then wife, Nancy Hollander, were around the Join Community Union Project. They did a book called Uptown, which talks about the community and the organizing work of Join. Todd was a wonderful guy. Was always really nice to me. One of my favorite times with him was when he came and bailed me out of jail over at the Somerdale police station. I have a picture of one of us on each side of the barred and covered door. He's going to be sorely missed. He was a proponent of the New Left and then a critic of the New Left. And there was a lot of dialogue after he passed among Students for Democratic Society members from way back about the good and the not so good and how he was basically loved.
Michael, isn't it interesting to look back over the decades now? I remember when you first introduced me to the name of Todd Gitlin. It was around that Uptown book. But as someone who was active in the stuff that he then taught for the next many decades, not unlike yourself, isn't it interesting to see who winds up being the mouthpiece, if you will, for media to call on to get an era translated?
Well, he got a lot of attention that way because partly he was criticizing the New Left, and he went back and forth on a few issues, but I'm not going to get into all that because I basically, after a certain point, I didn't pay that much attention, and then in the last year or so, I started thinking much more about being in touch with people, and I wish I had gotten in touch with Todd. The last time I saw him was at the Heartland Cafe. I'm not sure what year it was and what he was there for, but he was on the patio and we had a little bit of a chat. He was with some other friends. We'll see if I have pictures of that somewhere hidden away. Well, I'm going to share a little bit as best I can about a report I saw, I think, on Thursday night on PBS on the NewsHour. It was a report about the wellness community and the anti-vax movement. And there were two women. One was a yoga instructor who talked about how the anti-vax movement has taken on the language of the yoga community and turned a number of people in the yoga community into anti-vaxxers. And this is a woman who, I guess, teaches yoga. There was another woman who described herself or was described as a wellness influencer. And she was deep into the wellness community, and she noticed and pointed out that every time she looked something up, there was right next to it was anti-vax information. And so she stood by that for a long amount of time, and then just the overwhelming evidence turned her, and she criticized the wellness community and talking about how linked the two things are these days. So the anti-vax community has really infiltrated not only the yoga community, but the overall wellness community. And I was thinking back to our early days in the Heartland when we were looking at all the health food stuff and the, Adele Davis and a lot of books and fasting and all that. And, I thought of ourselves as progressives, although I knew there were always conservatives, rural people who were kind of into the health food movement and were not necessarily progressive politically. They don't necessarily go together, but they should.
Okay, I'm not quite sure how to respond to that. I think what you're saying is that things get combined that don't necessarily make logical sense to be combined, or that will maybe further muddy the issue of healthcare and how to be well. I think that is all very available in this period of COVID. And we've seen responses from some of people we know and like that are anti-vaxxers. And yeah, I can't speak to it. I know that I am feeling much safer given that I'm vaccinated and boosted as a 72-year-old with COVID. I mean, with COPD. Sorry about that. That was a slip of the tongue. So if people feel safer unvaccinated, they're flying against all of the, figures and data that have been collected thus far. It's unvaccinated that are dying in larger numbers. But to me, the biggest thing really still with this whole COVID thing is how badly America has done, how poorly we are situated to act together as a nation and take care of ourselves. We've still got the highest death rate, and we still have the most cases, and we don't have the most people. We've really failed. Speaking of which, maybe we should just go on to the global.
You got something I would follow up.
What?
There were also some articles about welcoming the right wing to the 60s and how they've kind of adopting, the style, the language, the freedom now, incorporating Dr. King's words to kind of promote the right wing agenda.
Who was welcoming them? I'm wondering.
It was just a kind of a headline in either the New York Times or the Washington Post or I'm not sure where I saw it.
The first time I remember them doing that was when they stood outside the vote counting in Broward County, Florida, and stopped the counting of ballots for Al Gore and giving us the hellacious history that we've had since 2000 on voting, on politics, on the whole flipping deal. And they were acting like leftists out there on the other side of the glass. They were all staffers for Republicans who pretended to be real people asking for ballots to not be counted. Yeah, to stop.
And behind all that, behind the whole right-wing movement is a lot of money. There are a lot of very wealthy people who apparently just really get it wrong, I might say. I mean, there's a guy, an executive from Facebook, who's left to go, work with Bannon and promote the Trump agenda.
Right.
It's kind of strange to me that these wealthy people with a lot of good education and knowledge can be so taken in by their own kind of self-interest and money making, and I just don't understand it. But I'm certainly willing to join the battle to try to correct it and fight against it for as long as I can.
Interesting start to the show. I'm sure we'll cheer up, maybe.
Well,
we're going to talk about Olympics. We're going to talk about music, but just globally, the Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister Trudeau, enacted the Emergencies Act for the first time in Canada's history in an effort to end the protests in Ottawa against COVID restrictions. The decision allows the government to regulate or prohibit travel to, from, or within any specified area. Those who persist will have their bank accounts frozen, their trucks towed, and likely be fined and or arrested. I don't know what the current status of that protest is. I think it had fits and starts of other spots lighting up along the border, but nothing as big as the the one, the original, and I'm forgetting the
Well,
name.
they're clearing the streets in Ottawa as we speak. I mean, there's a lot of news about that going on, and we'll have more on that later, and we'll try to maybe digest that movement and, you know,
Well,
where
it's
it came
connected,
from, who's backing it.
connected to what you were saying. I mean, the COVID has done a lot of different things, and you know, the truckers thing is one of them. And whether or not, how many actual truckers were part of that will come out as well.
Okay, let's move on to the environment. I've got some interesting stuff here. Forever might not be as long as it used to be. PFASs, I don't know how you say that, a toxic chemical class, were nicknamed forever chemicals because of their nature to be near impossible to destroy. They tend to accumulate in water and soil, but scientists at the EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency, recently found that a new heat pressure technique can destroy 99% of PFASs in water. Okay,
So-
that's good
so
for
do
all these
you-
people following that.
Everyone remember hearing about that from Deborah Shore on this show a number of times. She talked about those chemicals. She also talked about getting them out of the water, and she is now with the EPA. So she's helping draw attention to that. And so that is very good news. Yes.
That is good.
Okay, so Pamela Moses, a 44-year-old Black woman in Memphis, was sentenced last week to 6 years in prison for trying to register to vote in 2019, despite having a felony conviction. And in addition to government officials having made and admitting to making several mistakes, including a probation officer telling Moses she was approved to vote and signing her registration card, Moses was still found guilty of perjury and sentenced. That seems to be a heavy sentence related to casting a ballot, particularly when we have movements all across the country now, which we cover on this program, to eliminate rules for anti-voting for felonies, particularly folks who have paid their debt to society, as it were. As we have in Illinois, once someone has done their sentence, they can vote again. So I'm not sure if in Tennessee what the law is, but it's probably not as good as the one in Illinois.
Well, it's a red state with a big blue bubble in Nashville. And I got more, no, that's Nashville, but I got more from Tennessee on Memphis. Starbucks has fired 7 workers there for regulations unknown to those who were fired, all of whom were active in organizing a union shop. That's part of the broader movement to unionize Starbucks across the country. Right now, there are more than 50 stores in nearly 20 states who have initiated labor or union efforts. Remember, it first started up in Buffalo. Here are the Starbucks stores that have public campaigns in Chicago right now. Randolph in Chicago, Randolph and Wabash, in Logan Square at California, that's 2543 California, out in LaGrange, and at 55th and Woodlawn in Hyde Park. So when you go to Starbucks, ask the people, thank them for their work, ask them if they got any information on the union, how's it going, etc. There is no call for a boycott at this time, but certainly there's an opportunity to talk to the friendly baristas.
Cool. Let's see. How about energy? New York's first offshore wind farm is being built right now. I'm not sure if that means it's being built unionized.
Yeah, it is. I think that is it's a union
project.
Union workers.
And it's the 130 megawatt South Fork wind project will be in the Atlantic Ocean, about 35 miles east of Montauk Point. South Fork wind is 1/5 offshore wind. 1/5 offshore wind projects in New York, with the plan to have these farms providing 30% of New York State's power by 2035. I remember the Kennedy family being quoted as being against wind farms outside Hyannisport.
Yeah.
In a classic example of NIMBY, not in my backyard, even if it's good for everybody else. And the question that our producer asks is, are we going to be seeing wind farms out on Lake Michigan? And we should, actually. I mean, there's good headwinds out there and you don't have to go that far out, 30 miles, but people will complain. People will say it ruins their view or their sailing or whatever else. So interesting to, interesting to do the fight of what's right for us and for the environment and for the most number of people versus what some of us kind of go, oh, I wish I still had my view or whatever.
Well, it'll be, you probably won't even be able to notice the windmills out on Lake Michigan with all the sailboats that'll be out there in the next another month or so. Be a lot of things to look at. Let's take a look at COVID. In Illinois, there was a decision by a judge downstate that invalidated Governor Pritzker's requirement that masks be worn in schools to prevent the spread of COVID. CPS says they will continue to require masks in the classroom. The judge's decree also invalidated other Pritzker orders, including required vaccinations for school employees.
So that's the reversal of the court decision that then Pritzker and company appealed. And Thursday of this week, an Illinois appeals court dismissed that appeal of Pritzker's, the decision on Pritzker's mandates. So except for certain school districts making their own decisions like CPS, we're up a creek without a paddle in terms of kids passing it on. And also those requirements you mentioned about required vaccinations for school personnel. It continues. Pritzker's going to have a big fight on his hand with all these Republicans. I just know that.
I just got a little, this is some breaking news thanks to the AP. A judge has handed a 2-year sentence to Kim Potter, the ex-officer in Minneapolis who said she confused gun with taser in killing Dante Wright. It's not in Minneapolis. It's, I forget where it was. I think it was in Wisconsin somewhere.
No, well, whatever. What year sentence? 2 years?
2 years. Remember, she thought it was a taser, but it was her gun, and she killed the guy.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's that. The roots of this show were at a restaurant. We're at the Heartland Cafe, which both Katy and I were co-founders of, and we were honored to do the show from the stage at the Heartland for many years.
We were enjoyed. It was fun. It was like the breakfast hour downtown.
It was good. And then we moved it to downtown, and now we're doing it via Zoom. But we are sympathetic to restaurants everywhere. And so I'm going to share that after 31 years of serving hot dogs, Polish sausages, and fries, Fast Track Restaurant in the West Loop has closed for good this past Wednesday. Regulars and fans lined up around the block for a final goodbye meal from the store as owner Eddie Tefka says he looks forward to spending more time with his family. Just because you give up your restaurant doesn't mean you don't have a lot of work to do. But anyhow, congratulations for the long run over there at the Fast Track. And we're going to try to go to as many restaurants in the months to come as we can, because who knows what's going to happen to them. And I like eating out.
We have both felt the pain of our fellow small business owners, particularly restaurants, in these last 2 years. It's been, I can't imagine what it would have been like for us. I mean, I know we would have served outside because we were lucky enough to have a big outside area. We would have been able to keep doing that, but we wouldn't have been able to meet the tax requirements or the mortgage or anything else on no business, and no bar business, for example.
It's rough for restaurants still.
It's very, very rough. And people's favorite places, like the one you just mentioned. I mean, Fast Track was always like, if I had a downtown required date, which as you well know, I had many, in the name of the restaurant, and there was some kind of disciplinary office located on Superior Street, not a couple blocks from Fast Track, and more than once I was headed there for a hot dog in recognition for getting my job done.
It makes
So
me
some
want
kind
a
of
Polish
reward.
sausage with grilled onions and peppers and the whole deal. Ooh, been a long time. Eating a
Yeah,
lot of
health
tofu, a
food.
lot of oatmeal, a lot of fruits and vegetables.
Well, what do we
Let's
got?
go to
else?
Rogers Park. Tell us about what's coming up on our endorsement session for Network 49, Kate.
Well, that's for members of Network 49, which is an independent political organization you've heard about from here. We're the group that does committees, do a lot of volunteer work on education. This past week, Network 49 sent around a Valentine's card to the teachers and staff of the 6 schools in our ward, because we just feel, and candy, we've sent them candy and a card saying we appreciate you. But the other serious work that has been done by Network 49 includes getting on the ballot and winning a moratorium on the expansion of
Charter schools.
charter schools. That was one of the first things we did about 5 years ago. Then we also signed on to the plaintiffs for the consent decree oversight, which single-handedly Michael Harrington, who we've had on the show talking about it, has maintained our connect, and we are actually recruiting hopefully some younger members who can do the thing and help us out with that going forward. So next Saturday, a week from today, Network 49 is holding its endorsement session for the June primary. If you are a member, great, come, show up, listen to them. If you aren't, sign up, go to network49.net and check it out. I think we got a guest coming in now, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, we're gonna come back after a little music. We'll be right back with more from the Heartland. Stay tuned here on the left end of your dial or wherever you're watching or listening to this show. We'll be right back. Gordon Thompson, how are you doing, Gordon? Let's talk sports.
Well, hello, Chicago. I'm feeling good and ready to come into downtown Rogers Park.
You're getting in on Friday and we're taping this on Thursday, and you're going to be here for what reason? Something special.
Well, I'm coming in for the great Andre Fomby's induction into Loyola Sports Hall of Fame. And he's one of many Loyola tracksters that I coached that are in the Hall of Fame at Loyola University, great Jesuit school. And I'm really proud of him. And it's really a nice accomplishment. It's been quite a few years since Andre's attended school at Loyola. He graduated, I think, 1992 or 3. And so it's been a little bit of a stretch. And it's going to be great to have him back on campus. Campus looks quite a bit different now than it did back in the early 1990s.
Well, when Andre first started running for you, didn't you have that cinder track right there in the middle of the campus?
Well, there was not a cinder track. It was in front of Hallis Hall, which is still there. Not a real track, not an oval at all. It was one end had a beautiful curve, and then the other end was flat, so a square turn. So we didn't train there much, maybe a little bit of this and that, but we did most of our work over at the Cinder Park in Amundsen Park and over at Angel Guardian. There was a 320-meter little cinder track for Angel Guardian. And we would just jog over there about a mile away from campus, right up Devon Avenue and hang a left, I think, right there by Angel Guardian. And man, nice little 300-meter track. They hated it.
I remember that track, and I don't think it's much left of it.
I think it's gone.
So this weekend, when Andre gets inducted into the Loyola Sports Hall of Fame, also there's a big basketball game, and that's sold out. That's Loyola Drake. You got any take on that?
Well, Loyola's in right now. They're in the Missouri Valley Conference, and that's a good Missouri Valley Conference foe. I think there's a lot of Drake alumni in Chicago, and certainly a lot of people that work. Our good friend Jim Canadle, he worked at was the head track coach at Drake at one time on the ladies side before he came to Northwestern and Loyola and UIC, University of Illinois Chicago, for his track expertise. So there is a good bit of Drake people here in Chicago. I think it's going to be a great game. But at halftime, it is going to be a nice induction ceremony for this year's Loyola Hall of Fame class, of which Andre is one of the people.
Well, speaking of history at Loyola and track, Loyola has a long history of really good track teams. You had a number of All-Americans. Before you, I don't remember who the coach was, unless it was Tom Cooney. Tom Cooney went on to do races and marathons, great runs all over the world with a big operation. And I think you were telling me he's involved in some new track events that are going on.
Yeah, Cooney is a million miles a minute. He's got always something going on. The history of Loyola track, though, before to get to Cooney's new deal at the history of Loyola track is long and storied, all the way back from the 1920s of Joe Tigerman starting a program. He's also in the Loyola Hall of Fame. Yeah, Joe. And, an Olympian in Tom O'Hara, who set the world record indoors for the mile at the Chicago Daily News Relays, which was a big deal back in the early 1960s, live on Worldwide Sports on ABC. Tom O'Hara broke the world record and became a member of the 1964 Olympic team. He won the NC2A mile, won the NC2A cross country championship. So he was really Loyola's first really great athlete. And then speaking of Cooney put Loyola on the map also in the 1980s for his 4x800 relay of 4 great legs, all guys from Chicago area, most of the South Side. And all 4 legs are in the Loyola Hall of Fame, as well as Cooney is. And then there was a little bit of a drought of what was cooking into the 70s and the 80s. And I got at Loyola about 1984, and not much of a budget, not much of a scholarship program, but we worked hard and we attracted the best from Chicago area. Eddie Slowakowski, sub 4-minute mile. Mark Burns, phenomenal, great coach in his own right. Jim Westfall, 4-time All-American, just a great athlete. And Fomby and Bill Cull and on and on and on. And down on the South Side, Terry Sheehan and Jason Rush and all over the place is just a great tradition of Loyola track with the Phillips family, the Kellers and the Wards, everybody that put it together, including our first All-American. Yeah, on the women's side ever. 10,000 meters. Great.
Who was that?
Well, who was the person that you talked to on Facebook?
I can't remember.
So this history of Loyola track is fantastic, and we're really proud. And it's going to be a really nice celebration Saturday at Loyola Stadium at the Joe Gentile Arena.
Another guy who was a good runner for you was Tom Michael, who is now running Boise State Radio out there in Idaho. And he goes on these long, 50-mile runs and competes still.
Tom's an amazing person, more ways than one. He was a half miler at Loyola and in high school, and now he's turned to these ultra marathons. It's phenomenal what the brain can do for a person. Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that we keep having you on, besides you cheerfully livening up our show and sharing good information, is you follow the Olympics, and you were on recently before the Olympics were going on. And you talked a lot about the shooting and the running event. What's that called?
The biathlon.
Biathlon. Yeah, you went into a lot of detail about that. But now that the Olympics have been on for well over a week, and probably coming up toward the end. How about you starting to give us a little rundown about what you saw, what you think is important, what are the political and justice questions going forward, et cetera, et cetera. Take it away, Gordon. Run your mouth.
Hey, Michael, do you remember when we visited Lake Placid, New York?
I do.
And went to the site of the 1980 Olympics. Do you remember standing on that outdoor speed skating track? It wasn't the ice when we were there. It was in the summertime. Do you remember?
It was actually had water on it.
It had a little bit of water on it. But the person that made that speed skating track famous was Eric Heiden, who's now a medical doctor. He won every single event in that Olympics, 4 or 5 gold medals, every single race, from the sprints to the long distances, from 500 meters to 10,000 meters. He performed the most greatest Olympic speed skating moment of all time. We were on that track, Michael. Could you feel it? Could you feel the buzz?
I have photographs of that and the big structures for the skiing that they had still.
It was pretty cool being at Lake Placid. But here at this Olympics in Beijing, China, which is the first site for both the summer and Olympic Games. They're the first country and the first city to host both summer and winter games. The big drama story that involves both dramatic effect in sport and politics is the women's ice skater who got disqualified for a drug violation. Her name is Kamila Valieva, and she's only 15 years old. Smooth, silky, just a beautiful figure skater. The first who probably was going to get the quad, 4 rotations in the air for women. It's been done a few times for men, but normally for men, but women, this would have been the first Olympics. And she's been doing them left and right in practice and in preliminary competitions, no problem, no sweat, and hands-on favorite to win the gold. But in the pairs or in her preliminary competition, she tested positive for a heart medication. And she's claiming that it was her grandpa's heart medication. Well, the sidelight to this medication is it improves endurance. It does. And as a 15-year-old, that kind of a wispy young frame, I could see, I need something to help my endurance. I'm so weak, I can't. So, if it smells like a duck, quacked like a duck, it's a duck. It's not her grandpa's medication that she's surrounded with an entourage of other people. The country has a long and storied history of doping, and that's why they are not competing under their country's flag in this Olympics or the previous Olympics or the Olympics to come, because they have shown that it's a state organized program, institutionalized doping, started at the government level. Think about it, if our government was involved with doping of our athletes. Joe Biden right there with the probably a little bit better if Donald Trump were doing it. But anyhow, it boggles your mind how a government would be involved with a sport doping program. But that's the program that was involved with Sochi Olympics, the previous Winter Olympic Games, where the doping control at that was a sham, a total sham, a little sliding window in the door where the Russian samples were passed, and then the door was closed, and then they disappeared. Those samples disappeared and did not get tested. So absolute just history of shenanigans. And here's just a continuation. The crime is, here's a wonderful athlete that was denied a great opportunity. She didn't need those performance enhancing drugs to do what she can do. She's great naturally, and she should have been allowed to compete naturally, and she probably would have won the gold on her own. As it is, as of tonight, she got 4th place in the free skate due to pressure. The international pressure and media focus on her of how she was caught doping but still allowed to compete has been unbelievable on a 15-year-old. And that's unfair on any account. And maybe she did bring it upon herself, but I think it's more her entourage that brought it upon her. I don't think that she, as a 15-year-old, can say, hey, I'm going to go out and find this one medicine that's going to improve my endurance.
Well, Gordon Thompson, on an earlier sports report on this show, a number of months back, or maybe a year, we talked about Sha'Carri Richardson, the sprinter, who was not allowed to participate in the last Olympics because she tested positive for marijuana, which is a legal substance where she was up in Oregon, I believe. And there's been a lot of comparisons between her being denied participation in the Olympics while Valieva is allowed to participate. Any comment on that?
Well, I really like Sha'Carri's line on it, and it's because I'm black. That's why they didn't let me run, because I'm black and she's white. I kind of like that line. It's a little superficial. How much credence it has, I don't know. It's a damn shame about Richardson because that's not a performance enhancing drug. Cannabis cannot improve performance. If anything, it detracts from performance. It takes a little bit of an edge off of explosive sports, and it devastates any endurance or lactate threshold sports. So it's not a performance enhancing. She took it as a response for mental health. Hey, my mom just died and I'm at the Olympic trials. I need to chill out, literally.
Well, back to Beijing and these current Olympics, you got any more stories? I know that there were, speaking of African Americans being involved in the Winter Olympics, there's not that many, but there were a few breakthroughs this time. You want to share some of that?
Yeah, I'm really hyped up on a young lady from Ocala, Florida, that won the 500-meter speed skating. And Erin Jackson, 29 years old, is the first African-American winner of any speed skating event, either the big track or the short track. Erin Jackson, the first African-American woman to win a gold or any medal. And it's not just that is the big part of the story. It's she never trained on ice in her formidable years. She was in Ocala. There is no ice rinks in Ocala, Florida. She trained in inline skating with the most phenomenal coach that put together a tight group of really hungry athletes and youngsters that wanted to learn how to speed skate but did not have anywhere to train. People all over the state of Florida would migrate to Ocala to get to a part of this coach, this woman coach. And she put on inline skates, rollerblades, but not the 4 square rollerblades that you and I had in high school. These are all these rollerblades are in a straight line. It's called inline blades. And it looks like a skate, but it doesn't perform exactly like a skate steel edge on ice. But it's close enough on a firm surface. So they go to a high school track, and in groups, they just start just like off of speed skating as if they're on ice. And they do the basic same technique of inline skating as ice skating. So get a lot of good power exercise, but they lose some of the nuances of being on real ice. It's amazing what Erin Jackson has done to prepare for the Olympic Games over this time. Plus, she didn't qualify in the Olympic trials. She fell during the 500 meters at the Olympic trials. She wasn't even on the team, on the US team. What happened? Another woman recognized, hey, this lady's got the world record. I'm going to give up my spot and for Erin Jackson because she has the potential not just to place well, but to medal. And Lord, it came true that not only she medaled, she won the gold. The young lady that gave her spot, Brittany Bowe, from the same training group in Ocala, Florida. And what did she go on to do? Yeah, she got a bronze medal in the 1,000 meters. What a group of ladies coming from Ocala, Florida, speed skating when there's no ice.
Well, Gordon Thompson, it's been great getting your views on the Olympics. And I know you're getting on a plane on Friday and showing up in Chicago for Andre Fambe's induction into the Loyola Sports Hall of Fame. And I'm going to be seeing you, and I'm looking forward to it. We'll listen to the show together on WLUW 88.7 on Saturday morning. And who knows what else will be going on that weekend. But
sounds good. And I really look forward to seeing all the ex-Loyola Ramblers. Oh, well, wait a second. Not ex. Once you're Loyola Rambler, always a Rambler. So
Always
all
a
the
Rambler.
good men and women that I coached at Loyola, and it'd be great to be back on campus.
Well, thanks a lot. And everyone else out there listening or watching live from the Heartland, we'll be right back with a little bit more interesting conversation and some good music. Stay tuned here on the left end of your dial. Be right back. Well, that was Take Me to the River by Syl Johnson. And we are glad to bring on our pal, our engineer when we're in the studio, James Porter. Good morning to you, James. And how are you doing?
I'm doing. Happy to be alive.
Well, within a week of each other, the brothers Jimmy and Syl Johnson both passed on to the great spirit land. And their passing followed the passing of another Chicago music icon, Sam Lay. You follow music closely and you write about it. Tell our listeners a little bit about the Johnson brothers.
The Johnson brothers, they were
within a week of each other.
They kind of came from a musical dynasty. There was Syl and Jimmy, who you know, and there was like a lesser known guy named Mac Johnson, who played behind Magic Sam. He died like many years ago. But Syl and Jimmy Johnson, who we just lost Jimmy and Syl, but Jimmy Johnson, who we just lost, was more on the blues side, straight blues. He played in several bands for years, you know, did a lot of like soul music, like to get by and to get paid. And at some point during the 70s, he started focusing on all blues. And I think his first full-length album came out for Delmark, like in the late 70s. And from then on, he just kind of like, you know, forged his own style, you know, high-pitched vocals. He was a great songwriter too, you know, which is something that really stood out, you know, in a situation where a lot of blues guys will just do the standards. Jimmy had like, you know, quite a few songs up his sleeve besides the songs you expect to hear. You know, and also too, as you probably know, after the pandemic hit, he was already in his 90s by then, but he was doing like these Saturday afternoon podcasts where he was video podcast, I think, where he was like doing, he was just like sitting in his living room, just playing the blues by himself, you know, and he just kind of kept that going up to the end of his life. And he was a very prominent man on the scene. And then we have Syl Johnson, you know, who we lost like right after that. He was more on the soul end because both he and his brother came from Mississippi in the 50s, and they both started out on the blues scene. Syl kind of gravitated more towards soul, and he cut like quite a few 45s to a bunch of different people. And then he had a big hit in 1967 with a song called "Come On, Sock It To Me," you know, and that kind of led to like a whole bunch of different songs he did after that. He was like a singer, a producer, a guitar player, you know, songwriter, did all these things, like, you know, several, not just triple threat, a several threat. You'd think he'd be like, you'd think he'd cross over pop at some point. He had quite a few R&B hits, but he was always coming close, but didn't quite get over the hump. But he still got his recognition anyway, you know, and as you can see from all the testimonials in the local press when he passed on.
Was there an article in the Reader about him passing?
Yes, there was. My friend Aaron Cohen did an article on him for the Reader, and I did something for Rock and Roll Globe. We both met and sort of knew Syl, you know, in different extents. He was like a very funny guy. You know, one of my most fondest memories was I was in Memphis for a music festival where Syl was playing, right? And as it turns out, Syl was staying in the same hotel as me, you know, and I'm in the computer room one morning, and who do I see sitting behind me but Syl Johnson and my friend Noah, in that order, you know, and for the next 30 minutes or so, he was regaling us all these stories, the people he knew and the people who ripped him off and how he was slowly getting his money from the people he sued. He was very proactive because a lot of R&B guys from his generation, they were getting, if their songs had like an open, funky breakbeat, they get sampled by all these rappers. But unfortunately, the rappers didn't pay. They just kind of figured that you didn't have to pay, or the guy was too obscure to be tracked down. But as it turns out, Syl was never off the scene for very long, and all these people like Michael Jackson and KRS-One was like totally jacking his stuff. But he just went after him one by one and just did not stop and did not cease. And he just totally, he was totally on the case.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories. If you even met Syl for like 5 minutes, I mean, there's like a lot of stories concerning him, But yeah,
I was not aware of Syl at all, but I watched Jimmy Johnson on many stages in Chicago. I mean,
yeah.
he was around and doing. I think he was playing long ago enough to have seen him on the stage on Sheridan Road. Michael, recall the place.
Biddy Mulligan.
Biddy Mulligan.
Biddy's.
Okay,
Am I right?
I think
I saw
there.
Coco Taylor there. I saw Eddie Clearwater there. I think I saw Jimmy Johnson there.
Well, this morning I went looking for pictures, and I found a picture from the Cooperative Energy Supply event at the Midland Hotel, where our friend Michael McGraw Piranha was playing, and it's a picture with Piranha filling in on bass with Jimmy Dawkins and Jimmy Johnson.
Wow.
Mhm.
So that's the only time I remember seeing Jimmy Johnson.
You should throw that one up on this program.
I'm going to send it to the producer over there, Emilio Davis. He's doing good. Let me ask you, James, what else is going on right now in the Chicago music scene that you would like to call attention to?
There are three musicians I'd like to call attention to. Number one is a guy named Justin Hill, who I saw at the Green Mill like last Saturday. He was like really great. Normally none of the music that I listen to involves auto-tune, but his does, and I liked it. When I saw him, he played with piano and drums acoustically, and every now and then he turned like this weird auto-tune effect to kind of like, distort his voice a little. And it sounds cheesy when you hear it on Top 40 radio, but it sounded great coming from him. And he's become my new fave. His own record's a little bit more produced than that, but I mean, he does wonders acoustically. I mean, he has the raw talent.
Say his name again.
Justice Hill.
Okay.
Justice Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's another lady I like by the name of God. Why am I blanking out right now?
Does my heart good. You're so much younger than me.
Okay. Well, let me see, Bailey D. Thank you, Bailey D. Rockabilly singer who's been around for quite some time. She's got a whole lot of energy. She has a band called The What For, I think, and they've been playing around quite a bit, like at the Honky Tonk Barbecue and other places. And if you don't mind me getting a little pompous, I have my own band now, the James Dean Joint. We started woodshedding during the pandemic, and we finally got it together by I think January of last year, I believe. My friend Dean Goldstein, I played harp on a CD he did, one of his old bands, and he asked if I knew anybody who could sing on this demo he did, and I said, oh, hell, I'll do it, And so I went down there like in January of 2021 to his place in Sandwich, Illinois, and I sang. And we got to talking and we had a lot in common. He said, hey, want to form a band? So fast forwarding to January 2022, that's when we played our first gig at the Green Mill as part of the Paper Machete thing. So, yeah.
Well, let me say that I know that you're a man who knows a lot about music. You're a musician, a reporter, a multi-genre fan. How about sharing a little bit about your musical evolution? Where did it start? What do you remember? What do you want to tell us about you and your music?
What I remember watching Soul Train, American Bandstand on TV when I was a kid, listening to Jackson 5 on a portable GE player when I was around that same age. Additional input from my dad's blues records and the oldie station, and then moving to teenage years, I started getting more into rock. I like a lot of punk stuff. And as far as the roots bands like the Blasters, it brings up to like Loyola when I first started hanging around the blues jams, like Kingston Mines and Wise Fools Pub, playing harp and singing. And that's when I first started to form my own bands. And that's the cereal box version.
That's a good version. That's a good version.
Well, give us a cereal box version about the status of your hoodoo party, which used to be on the third Saturday of every month at WLUW, and on the book that you've been writing. And where's that at? So,
Okay, the hoodoo party. Okay, that will resume as soon as we can make it back to the studio. Okay.
yeah, I know how that is. We're doing
You
the
know,
Heartland at home until we get back in the studio.
I know, yeah. So anyway, it's like, and the book that's still being hashed out. It should be finished soon. I have other projects I'm working on too. I've been freelance for a bunch of different people, for like The Reader and a newspaper out here in Oak Park, the Wednesday Journal. And I've been doing their event listings, and it's been like, busy or trying to be.
Tell us a little bit more about the book. It's going to be Northwestern University Press.
Northwestern.
It's about.
The book's called. The book is about Black rock musicians, and it will be coming out at hopefully from Northwestern University Press. I'm hoping next year.
Good for you, James. Your writing has been stellar, and the fact that you work hard at it shows. So shine on, you crazy diamond.
Back at you.
We're going to look forward to you being interviewed, I don't know, on Chicago Tonight by some of our friends once your book comes out, and you'll be able to show clips of the James Dean joint playing in Green Mill. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's got to be a big joint.
Oh, yes. By the way, this has nothing to do with nothing, but Michael, your beard rocks. It's like you're outdoing me,
I
man.
don't know how long it's going to last. I might cut it all off. I'm a little mangy.
So
I know. I get bored with my beard too. I've considered it. I've considered shaving this mess off too.
It's fun that you guys get to play with your faces that way. All right, I think we're running out of time. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah, we're getting close to it. We'd love to talk to you more, but I'm sure we'll do it again. And
yeah,
we will.
Thanks for coming on today, James.
And you got to let us know when the James Dean joint is going to be playing, because we want to go.
And we'll tell everybody else about it.
My son, Katy, who's been involved with Twin Peaks,
I remember.
He's playing with a band called Lake James next week at the Metro. So more on that to come. I'm excited for him. And I love when you guys and people I know are doing music. And you're one of the best, James, and we'll see you soon.
It's been a good season for people named James, I guess.
Yes. Right on.
Hey.
Oh, that was great hearing from James, and I'm so happy he's playing music. That's terrific.
He's a good harp player too.
I know. So for everybody out there, thanks a lot for tuning in. We've been doing this for over 25 years. We brought you live from the Heartland. Now it's called Heartland at Home. Broadcast every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central Time on WLUW 88.7 FM, streaming live from WLUW.org. and archived on our channel at youtube.com/Heartland Media. We also can be found on Spotify and Google Podcasts. Type in Live from the Heartland. Cablecast, sometimes on Channel 27, CAN TV. Mostly we want to thank our team. The team now includes Emilio Davis, Lynn Orman Weiss, podcast director Gwen Brown, and every once in a while, Luis Mejia Aarons from Veracruz. We ask that you do good in the world.
The world needs all the good that you and we do.
All power to the people.
See you next week. Have a wonderful week.